Hi, everyone, and welcome to this series of B Lab Nordic's deep dives into the B Lab standards. My name is Annika, and I'm the comms lead here at B Lab Nordics. The impact topic I'd like to take you through today is called human rights. As some of you know, B Lab continues to evolve the standards to meet today's most urgent challenges. And we place increasing focus on how businesses can and must respect the dignity, safety, freedom of people across their operations, but also their value chains. So, our standards aim to raise the bar for what it means to be a responsible business. And that includes doing the work to understand and prevent harm to people and to act when the rights are violated. That's why in this session, we'll explore why human rights are a central part of the standards, what the requirements look like in practice, and how you can start preparing. If your company wants to certify as a B Corp, you'll need to meet the requirements for each of the 7 impact topics, including the human rights, as well as the foundational requirements. All of them are tailored to your size, industry, and your region. You might think this topic is less relevant for companies based in the Nordics, but the truth is, no company operates in isolation. Most supply chains today span multiple geographies, and every company, regardless of size or sector, has a responsibility to understand and act on its human rights impacts. And that includes how you work with suppliers, how you select partners, and how you ensure the people connected to your business are treated fairly and with respect. Protecting human rights isn't just about avoiding harm, it's also about building business models that contribute to a more just, inclusive, and resilient economy. And just like with the other impact topics, also the human rights requirements are structured to support continuous improvement over time. You're not expected to be perfect from day one, but you are expected to commit, take action, and build on that progress year after year. We'll start by showing you how this works across different timeframes, what's expected in year 0, which means your first certification on this version of the standards, and how that builds from there in your next recertification after year 3 and year 5. Before we dive in, take a moment to look at the company size table on the next slide. In general, most of the requirements for businesses differ by company size. And how we identify your company size is either by FTE, full time equivalent employee, or by your annual revenue. And whichever is higher determines what applies to you. So it's worth identifying that now so you can follow along with the standards that match your business. And with that, let's dive into what human rights impact topic looks like. Why human rights as an impact topic? This impact topic is about improving outcomes for people that are at risk of harm due to human rights violations, for example, whether directly or indirectly linked to a company's operations, its products, or services. It actually requires companies to publicly commit to respecting human rights and to identify and address the most important human rights issues. The topic is separated in 4 major requirement sections, which are number 1, Human Rights 1, commitment to respecting human rights. The second one is about identifying and addressing the most important human rights issues. Third, it's about managing and remediating actual and potential human rights impacts. And last but not least, it's all about working with your suppliers. The first requirement for this impact topic is about commitment. By making this commitment public, the company shows its internal and external stakeholders that it is taking action on this issue. This is also important building block of the UN guiding principles on business and human rights, actually. HR 1.1 and 1.2 are quite similar. HR 1.1 is dedicated to smaller structures and medium structures with less human rights risks. And 1.2 is thought for larger organizations. What is important to note here is the word public. This means that the company must make this document available to any external stakeholder, meaning that an internal document like ethics of code of conduct, supplier code of conduct, or anything else that are not public facing documents actually do not meet the compliance criteria. Now that the company has committed, it's time for it to act on the most important human rights issues. Since the following requirements can ask a large amount of internal resources, the Human Rights 2 requirement is thought for larger organizations. At year 0, meaning with the first certification on this version of the standards, the company must identify its salient human rights issues. This will help the company to first know where to focus its resources, and second, manage potential negative human rights impacts proactively. At year 3, so with the first recertification on this version of the standards, not only the company will have to identify its issues, but will also share publicly what are the salient human rights issues and what is its strategy to address them. At year 5, the company demonstrates progress and ensure it works as intended. The intent of this sub-requirement at year 5 is for the company to evaluate, learn, and continuously improve its practices. Completely eliminating all actual and potential negative impacts is impossible, and therefore this is not the intent. If we continue on the progress on the human rights issues, not only will the company be able to demonstrate progress, but HR 2.5 will require it to communicate about this publicly. Human Rights 2.6, that is required to be completed by year 3 for medium-sized and larger companies, will require companies to formalize its processes according to the strategy. And finally, for the second section, HR 2.7 aims to equip the relevant person in the company on how to act on all those issues. The third requirement of this impact topic, human rights, requires company to prevent, mitigate, and remediate actual and potential negative human rights impact. HR 3.1 requires large organizations to have an internal process. It ensures that the company adequately processes information about human rights issues so it can respond to them appropriately. Please note, processing information internally is separate from the company's response to that information, which is actually addressed in HR 3.2 and 3.3. HR 3.2 and 3.3 are actually the same, only differentiated by company size and industry. As mentioned previously, these are sub-requirements that ask companies to act on their negative impact. Human Rights 3.4's intent is to ensure the company selects clients and projects with human rights impacts in mind. This also reduces the likelihood of contributing to greenwashing or other negative consequences. The intent is not to prohibit specific clients or projects. Human Rights 3.5 has the same spirit as 3.4. Its goal is to ensure the company selects investment with human rights impacts in mind. HR 3.6 is highly specific and mandatory only for extra large companies and requires them to carry out a human rights impact assessment. HR 3.7 requires companies that are small or bigger to have a due diligence in conflict area situations. This requirement is to be met at year 3, letting time for organizations to monitor and adapt. And finally, the requirement number 4, working with suppliers. For bigger companies in certain industries, HR 4.4. With year 3, HR 4.1 then demands companies. HR 4.5 to HR 4.8 highlight different. To conclude, HR 4.9 to HR 4.11. And this sums up the overview of the human rights. And if you wish to explore the requirements, you are very welcome. And if you happen to have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.